Wait, Silksong is out.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try and keep this quick, as this is how every review of Silksong has started. Well, maybe not those exact scenes. Sure! But this is a tale as old as time now. Hollow Knight came out many moons ago and bedazzled everyone with its charming world, difficult platforming, and tight combat. Then they said, hey, we're going to make some more, an expansion where you get to play as the bug who says, sure! Everyone was excited for it. And then it grew too big, and Team Jerry said they were turning it into a standalone game. Then, as I'm sure you're all aware, they fell off the face of the planet and were never heard from again. Probably because they're Australian. You know how gravity works, it means things fall down. Don't live in Australia if you don't want to fall off the planet. It's simple. It became a bit of a meme, this lack of information. Famously, the YouTube channel Daily Silksong News posted over 1,600 videos of essentially nothing. Every gaming event got people's hopes up that maybe something will be announced. Maybe we'll hear some news. Only for everyone to put on the clown makeup once more and be made a fool of. No, I will not be wearing clown makeup in this video. I swear. Anyway, it came out, and it's good.
In a way, it is just more Hollow Knight. You are a bug, entering a mysterious new land that has fallen to some mysterious curse. Specifically, Silk and Song, like the name of the game. No, that's not a joke, the synopsis literally says that. Like Hollow Knight, it is a metroidvania. Or an action explorer, it's a game where exploration is hard-baked into this worm pie. You can look down and out of your way and see a shiny MacGuffin, and then it's just a simple act of going out of your way to go pick it up. To pick it up. To pick it up? Man, I suck at platforming. Really, the main difference between the two games is that in the original Hollow Knight, you played as the Knight, a cute little fella who didn't say anything, but had just the cutest little face. Oh, look at them. Meanwhile, now you play as Hornet, a feisty tall lady who is sharp and spiky and, importantly, actually speaks.
Cadestre.
No, it's not just shouting, Shah! In fact, that's entirely absent. But when interacting with NPCs and characters, Hornet will actually converse with them, instead of staring blankly at them until they felt awkward enough to fill the silence. Something I'm very used to. It's cool, as it turns her into her own unique character, building further on who we saw in the original. Plus, if she was silent all the time, she'd be such a downer to some of the happy-go-lucky friends you meet along the way. Perfect for every streamer to perform increasingly amateur voice acting for. Like this guy. Look at him, he's great.
It is just a delightful experience, filled with the exact same charm and character that you will have found in the original. Returning players will be instantly enamored in how the systems have expanded and the art and presentation bloomed. While new players might possibly have a mixed experience. You see, Silksong is really hard. It's all everyone was talking about, complaining that it's too punishing. Everything is impossible. How can someone possibly complete this game? But then, is it? Is it that much harder, that much more impossible than Hollow Knight the First? I honestly don't think so. I think what we're seeing here is the effect of something else, and that's the effect of mass appeal on niche culture.
Hollow Knight released to pretty decent numbers. Within 8 months of release, it had sold 500,000 copies, and after a whole year of release, managed to climb to the lofty heights of 1 million bugs. These are great numbers, but in the grand scheme of games that are sold, not massive. It's not exactly doing FIFA numbers, is it? Maybe if they swapped out all the hard as nails platforming and the combat involving you using an actual nail, and replaced them with the beautiful game, then maybe we'd get somewhere. I kid, that would be bad. The point is, if you look at Hollow Knight's sales figures over time, you get to 2.8 million sales after 2 years, eventually getting all the way to 15 million copies in 2025. Jesus, what happened there? Silksong, on the other hand, did not release to decent numbers. Silksong wasn't an indie game breaking new ground. It was the second coming of Bug Jesus with several years of expectation and hype. 1,600 daily videos of anticipation. Needless to say, it reportedly sold 6 million copies after 4 weeks. Oh, that's a lot of bugs. That's almost FIFA numbers, and we've not put in a single bit of football yet.
Why is this important? Well, with the original Hollow Knight, which was a tough game that punched you in the geodes if you stepped out of line and didn't respect a worm enough, the number of people playing it truly blind was a relatively small amount. By the time most players got around to playing Hollow Knight, there were thousands of guides, in-depth wikis, countless playthroughs with streamers and creators performing increasingly amateur voice acting throughout. What this means is any posts of "this game is hard, wah" get diluted over a long period of time. By the time the original Hollow Knight saw current Silksong numbers, it had been out for roughly 3.5 years. With Silksong, what you're seeing is 3.5 years worth of Hollow Knight grumbling all condensed down into a single month.
If you want another example of this, look no further than From Software games. Dark Souls was originally a relatively niche game series. It was tough as nails and very few people played them. Hardly FIFA numbers. If you'd stuck the gaping dragon in goal and not a jail, then maybe things would have been different. These numbers steadily increased. Bloodborne sold 1 million units within its first month. Aided by being the only game on the PlayStation 4, Dark Souls 3 picked up the pace with 3 million within its first month, and then Sekiro sold 2 million in 10 days. Hilariously, when Sekiro came out, oh no! Turns out everyone was talking about how hard the game was, a lot more than previously.
I actually worked in game retail at the time and have a very vivid memory of a man coming in angry and looking for a refund because the Activision game that had a lot of publicity around it was really hard and he couldn't get anywhere in it. He obviously didn't get a refund and then threatened me with a bad time if he saw me outside. A perfectly appropriate response.
But this is just a steady growth. Sure, Activision did a good job of turning a niche series into something mainstream. But come on, these are hardly FIFA numbers.
The Elden Ring. Oh, Elden Ring.
Yeah, so Elden Ring came out and destroyed all previous numbers for the series. It's like they put Pele in goal and then the Tree Sentinel scored a hat-trick as it smashed your face in 3 times in a row. Is it clear I don't know anything about football? Elden Ring sold 13.4 million copies within a month, well beyond FIFA and most other games. However, keeping on track with the theme of this video, when a niche culture of tough and slightly esoteric games got mainstream, well, the world was flooded with people saying how hard Elden Ring is, how impossible it was, how punishing it was.
And, it was hard, but so are all the other games. I wouldn't have said Elden Ring was ultimately much harder than the other FromSoft games. I might just be God's gift to gaming, but beyond the immediate bosses of the Tree Sentinel and that dragon in the lake, Elden Ring was just like all the other Soulsborne games. So, turns out, when you increase the number of voices playing a game on release by a factor of 10 or more, it is going to seem a lot louder. This condensing of numbers, like a delicious quadruple strength squash, is also combined with all those players being blind, or having to actually play the game themselves. Both the Soul series and most metroidvania style games are great to play with one eye to a guide to make sure you don't miss any powerful doodad or power boost. But here, a bunch of fresh larval form gamers had to think for themselves. They were at the mercy of their own negative phototaxis to discover new depths. So, is that it? Turns out that Silksong isn't actually that hard and it's just a bunch of normies ruining everything. Well, no, because it's actually really hard.
Exploration is one of the key aspects of Hollow Knight Silksong, like in any metroidvania, and I personally think it's the greatest strength of the Hollow Knight games. Whether or not Silksong does a reasonable job in training you up to the skills you'll soon need is another thing. You might start out with the basics of jumping and moving and struggling to jump downwards because you'll just grab the ledge again, but not too quickly you'll start acting as if you're playing a game of the floor is lava. Because it literally is. Within the first area, you're already having to work your way around pits of actual lava and trying not to get flash roasted in molten basalt. It is fair to say that the game expects you to be able to act with some ability somewhat swiftly. Not only are there spinning blades and hot steam vents to ruin your day, you'll also have whatever the heck this all is.
Hollow Knight loves a pogo. This is specifically doing a downward strike to use the deflection to bounce yourself back up and away from the thing you hit. Normally, spikes, enemies, and balloons. Silksong is no different, except the initial pogo is something perverse. It's diagonal. I think a lot of people's difficulties with the platforming didn't come from the fact that a mistake is a punishing 2 damage, but more that the initial mental shift to move diagonally requires more processing power than the average age-addled mind can handle. I'm running on like a Pentium processor up here. The thing is, though, that eventually you start doing things that would have seemed impossible to your fledgling mind.
The level of tricks and flips that you're expected to perform become, quite frankly, wild, and yet you manage to pull it all off. The platforming is so incredibly tight that learning your way through it comes naturally. A key aspect of this is just the natural sense of adventure. You find a little path that you can go down and naturally follow it to its conclusion, and in doing so, get something to hone your skills on, slowly improving with each bounce until the floor being made of lava is meaningless because you've emerged from your pupae and unfolded your carapace and are flying through the sky. On your journey, you get all sorts of new skills that open up the map. You'll pick up the ability to dash or wall jump, and it's so cool because you'll get a hot flash of images through your head where you remember all the previously unassailable areas that are now ripe for assailing. You might finish an area off and then get distracted as you hunt down every new spot that you think might now be passable. Maybe it's the critical path this time, or perhaps it'll lead you to something else entirely. It's rad.
The areas you explore are varied and exotic, providing a delicious variety of ideas for you to go through. However, in games like this, there's always one area that just really sticks in your craw and unfortunately just brings down the vibe. In Silksong, there are 2. The first and most obvious is an area called Bilewater. Imagine Blighttown, but somehow infinitely more annoying. Rest points are few and far between, and the boss run is possibly the only one in the game that's an actual problem. People have complained about the boss runs not being like in every Souls game, bar the first, in that you don't go from spawn to the boss instantly. But they're honestly fine, except for Blighttown, Bilewater, whatever. The second, and what is actually my fun little transition here into the next segment, is half of Greymoor. You finally make it to something that feels like a surface, and out to the right over here lies just misery. It's an area filled with and defined by pogoing on balloons to just get anywhere. But in an area that is a little too early for you to have really got the hang of things, so you just kind of flail around pitifully. But importantly, it's also filled with the worst type of enemies in Silksong. Flying ones.
Is the combat in Silksong hard? Well, yes, but that's the point. You've got limited health and the enemies hit hard. It is all about trying to get hits in when you can and only when you can, punishing you instantly for your greed, like those Dark Souls games you love so much. To keep on track with Greymoor and the bane of flying enemies, well, they're just not very fun. They seem to be hard-coded to keep a very precise distance away from Hornet at all times, so even if you jump and swipe at them, you're hitting nothing but air. Even if you run, jump, dash, dance, dodge at them, you're hitting nothing but air until they stay still long enough to do an attack. But whoops, you're too busy avoiding the attack to actually respond. Greymore is pretty much exclusively flying enemies, and when you're trying to fight them while simultaneously performing aerial acrobatics to put Cirque du Soleil to shame, it can be a bit miserable. Your thumbs become raw as you're moving around and trying to outmaneuver them in the world's lamest dogfight, and you suddenly get a flashback to those long sweaty nights when you first played Dark Souls. This also applies to some bosses, just a lot of flailing around trying to hit them while they remain just out of reach, like you're stuck in a pool of water and they're a delicious apple that you're trying to plant your eggs in.
A game like this isn't defined by its small mooks who you just run past and destroy their entire lineage. No, instead it's the bosses, the big titular fights for the belt. Or the bells. They're meant to be hard, they're meant to be tight. That's what it was like in Hollow Knight, that's what it's like in these games. But there's the big argument about how this game is too hard. The Savage Beastfly, The Last Judge, and so on. This is a niche genre that's designed around being punishing. It's the Dark Souls of metroidvanias or something. Remember when we described everything like that? God, we were creatively devoid then. But now, well, everyone wants a piece of your horns, except they're not prepared for the diatomaceous earth that's lying all over the place. And now it feels like you're running through razor blades. But that's the point.
Again, I might just be God's gift to gaming, but the bosses that were the names you see floating around in the forums and online weren't that hard. Just like Dark Souls, they require you to learn them and master them. You'll die a few times, but with each death comes a further understanding, and it builds into something incredible. You mentally ascend and proverbially lock in, and the tight movement and combat come into the room and hold hands. You swipe quickly before moving out of the way to then dash back in, and oh god, it's so good! The use of all your newly acquired movement tech in boss fights is where it's at. Each new MacGuffin isn't just a special key for opening a special lock, it has a real application in the fight for your life. Dashing and hovering and bouncing around the room to avoid the absolute madness that's exploding over the screen.
One of the great parts with Silksong is, much like in the exploration, if you come across a dead end, something you can't beat, for example, a big red ant guy, you can just go away, come back later, you've cleared your head, or maybe got a new piece of kit. Maybe now isn't the time to defeat it. Go get the dash and come back and it makes more sense. The point is, this isn't a game about instant gratification. It's not a genre of game about that. It's about testing your might in Mortal Kombat over an increasingly intense 30 minutes to an hour, until your thumbs bleed. Should Team Cherry make all of this easier to appeal to a wider market? No, this is the game they wanted to make. Should everyone get good or get off? Well, that's the thing. Maybe this game isn't for everyone because of that high wall made of razor blade dirt. An issue with Silksong, and I had this with the first game, is that eventually you might just hit a wall. You might never be able to get good enough, and whoops, that's all she wrote. You see, while you might be able to find more health upgrades, there are a limited amount. You can't grind away for souls for hours to hit harder or take less damage or whatever. You are limited by what's available. So, you could very well spend hours and hours trying to kill one annoying frog in one annoying swamp. Or kill yourself. Finally, with combat, I feel like some of the later bosses, the final bunch in the final act, suffer from an age-old problem with games about striking at the right moment. It's that there is no right moment. The bosses don't stop moving, don't stop dashing around the arena long enough for you to hit them, so you're stuck performing some laser tripwire movements to maybe, if you're lucky, get one hit in before spending another 5 minutes trapped in their ceaseless combos. Like, some of these bosses were hard purely because they never stopped attacking. You can't punish me for being greedy when I'm the Oliver Twist of bugs, asking if I can maybe have a small crumb of an attack window, okay? Can story be hard? I don't think so, although I guess people can fundamentally lack any form of reading comprehension.
So anyway, in keeping with the theme of this video, let's talk about benches. If you remember in Hollow Nest, they had quite a liberal system of public benches. These were your checkpoints and spawn points, your bonfires. They were a great moment of relief when you just trawled and bounced through all sorts of puzzles to know that if you die, you don't have to do that all again. Silksong has benches, but hilariously, Varloom incorporates the sort of anti-homeless technology that would make the Borough of Westminster blush. Most benches you come across require a delicious stipend to unlock. This is the same currency you'll use to try and buy new tools, keys, upgrades, and badges. So you're constantly being nickel and dimed everywhere you go. Some people have said that this is unfair and punishing. How are you meant to get anything if you're constantly having to pay for your own salvation? Well, have I got a man for you. His name is Martin Luther, and he thought that people shouldn't be able to achieve salvation through anything other than faith. Predominantly, he was getting quite annoyed with the wealthy paying their way into heaven by paying for all those great works you see everywhere.
Does this sound familiar? One of the great story beats that runs through the game is the idea of all these bugs heading out on a grand pilgrimage through literal death traps, and their friends are stricken by some terrible silk-based curse that pits friend against one another. And all the while they're doing this, for a moment's rest, they must pay their rosaries to the church. Repent, worm, for you are with sin, and only with a subscription of £40 a month can you achieve salvation. I honestly think it's a great way of combining world building and story with the mechanics of the game itself. You're consistently showing these vendors that have nice tools that are cool and good, but you've just spent all your money on a church-sanctioned bench, so you can't have any nice things for yourself. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into things, but I didn't wait until a lore video dropped for me to then say I know the story. Ah, god damn it, already? Wow. To try and close this video off, one which has come across as possibly quite bitter about people not enjoying things correctly, Silksong is hard, but it's meant to be hard. This discourse of millions of people bouncing off that difficult wall raises an interesting question on whether or not niches and subcultures should change to be more appealing. This isn't about accessibility. You can make arguments on that about the reported terrible Chinese translation, but about turning a purposefully challenging and bumpy road into something smooth and easy. Something that everyone can play and enjoy. Should an artist sacrifice their vision to appeal to the masses more? No, you're all wrong. I don't want this to be like get good gatekeep, because I do think Silksong has issues. Like I said, you might just hit a point where your brain isn't up to scratch, and then you're stuck. Some of the late stage bosses are a real pain of just too much going on, and flying enemies are an utter misery to fight against. But I think what Silksong is trying to be is an incredibly tight platforming-inspired metroidvania, and it does that so well. Every bit of platforming in this game was so good and just worked as it clicked in your head, and the way that then translates to the combat was great. That said, if a really hard game that expects you to really put in the effort, to pay attention and to learn from your mistakes, to learn the movements and skills of bosses and enemies, sounds like it might just be too tough, well, you can just watch your favourite streamer play it while doing increasingly amateur voice acting throughout. Hello, and thank you for watching my video, all about Silksong, Hollow Knight Silksong. Do you like my Hornet attempt at a Hornet cosplay? My hair's like the mask with the spikes, although it's not doing what I wanted it to do. I need to fix that for the next shot. It's really warm because I'm wearing thermal gear. Ha 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 ha. Every time I'm just sweating endlessly. Oh my god. Anyway, if you have thoughts about Silksong, let me know in the comments below, because ultimately, most of my viewers, a lot of people who hated it or are complaining about it, kind of just, it's not a game for them, and that's fine, that's perfectly fine, but like, you know. But there's this idea of this big popularized game, everyone's expecting it, and therefore everyone wants to play it, but it's not really a game for everyone. This isn't FIFA, this isn't COD, this isn't your next generic action-adventure game. But ultimately the point is that this is the big game that everyone's excited for, massive hype, waited years for, but like, it's not a game for everyone, you know? It's meant to be hard, it's meant to be challenging, and I don't think people necessarily appreciated that going in when the second coming of Jesus comes out, and etc, etc. You've watched my video, maybe? Haha. Anyway, it's warm. If you want, check out my other videos. This one up here is a quick and easy game, board game review about The Crew, a delightful little game about trick-taking and cooperative action. It's fun. Or down here, you've got another video that is about another video game, I think. However, I would be hard-pressed to tell you what game. Let's say Claire Obscure Expedition 33. It's a great game, honestly, probably the game of the year. Check them out, or you can click on my face orb, where my face is, to subscribe. Thank you, and goodbye.